Hey everybody, this is Chris, MTGO's Rec Start, and we're back with part 2 of this week's Show and Tell series. And at this point, I would not normally show a deck that finished in 10th place. We're focusing primarily on decks that finished in the top 4. However, I couldn't let this one pass by without some comment. This was a one-loss deck. It finished actually lowest of all the one-loss decks. But I think that it's going to rear its head again, and I didn't really want to let this one fly under the radar. This is Grappling Farang's Painted Stone deck, and he's built it in Scarecrows here. The first most remarkable thing about this deck is probably the price. This would have, had it made top 4, absolutely obliterated the record for previous most expensive deck, between $500 and $600. The mana base alone on this deck is over $500 by a rough calculation. Lion's Eye Diamond is in here for the first time that I've seen someone bring that to Tribal Legacy Wars, and Kuma made the same remark at the event. And of course, it has a full set of Force of Wills, which has only been seen a few times in the event in the past couple of years, and it has come down in price a little bit, but I think it's still hovering between 80 and 90. So my guess would be that this deck makes a pretty good run at $1,000, and if it comes up short, it isn't coming up that much short. Grindstones were generally somewhat expensive as well. This is a real budget buster, and this deck lost in round 1 to A&M1's Show and Tell Progenitus deck, and I imagine that it certainly clobbered the other 2 decks that it faced on the day, and I think you could very easily imagine this deck going 3-0 quite easily in an event, and so expect to see this one again, assuming that Grappling Farang decides to run it again. The Scarecrow build here, he hasn't run Reaper King, so other than Tezzeret, he actually doesn't have anything to pitch to his Force of Will, which means that the only function of Force of Will in his deck is once he's dropped a Painter's Servant and every card in his hand is made blue, he can protect the Painter's Servant from spot removal, because generally the way you're going to disrupt this combo usually is you wait for the Grindstone activation, then you kill the Painter's Servant in response. He doesn't have any Goblin Artificer or anything else going on here, so that would be normally a good way to disrupt this combo, but the Force of Will would protect it. But that's actually a pretty narrow use of Force of Will in this deck, for being one of the rare appearances of the card. The rest of his choices here, he does have some ways to give the Painter's Servant Shroud. Obviously, he's going to choose blue with the Painter's Servant for Force of Will in the first place. The rest of this is, he's got some sort of incidental hate for graveyard decks in here. Actually, got a lot of different ground covered in this deck. He's got Tezzeret to search for artifacts, including his combo pieces, as well as something like Ensnaring Bridge in order to shut down opposing creature decks, such as something like Progenitus. Obviously, he wasn't able to find it in that match. And also has Crucible of Worlds here for the possibility of a Wasteland Crucible lock, and also to get things like City of Traders back, for instance. There's a ton of fast mana in this deck. Mox Opal, certainly with a lot of these cheap artifacts, you can expect to be turned on pretty quickly. So a very expensive, very powerful looking deck that lost in round 1 and ended up having bad breakers as a consequence, but you could very easily see this deck being a force in the future, and I didn't want to shoot under the radar, so I thought I would highlight it here. But on to the decks that actually got somewhere this week. Going to look at AJ's Minotaur deck, and I've got some matches of AJ playing. AJ's Minotaur deck here has got makes big use of Didgeridoo, which is made a lot more powerful now than it used to be in the past, because being able to put a Minotaur out onto the battlefield for 3 used to be pretty underwhelming, when very few of the Minotaurs were A, good, or B, cost much more than 3 in the first place. But now we have guys like the Ethereum Horn Sculptor and Minotaur Aggressor, and of course old classic like Tongarf and Minotaur Illusionist here. And the Minotaur Aggressor is certainly a 6/2 first strike haste, a pretty good creature to be able to cheat into play early. This guy not so much if you Didgeridoo him into play, because you might want the Cascade effect, but of course you can always put him down early with a Didgeridoo, bounce him later with his return to hand clause, and try to cast him for Cascade effect if you need to in the late game. And Lord of Shatterskull Pass gets big for very little investment, and also can be a good presence on the board. He's got Zedruu in here for the combo with Illusions of Grandeur. Zedruu basically playing the role of Donate in the old Illusions Donate decks from 12, 13 years ago. But in addition to that, he's got a Journey to Nowhere and Oblivion Ring, which both combo really well with Zedruu as well, because you can get their effect, and then it doesn't really matter who controls them, so you can give them away and start getting some extra card draw. So another sort of trademark AJ build here is that he's got Valakutes in this deck, not for any particular sort of combo, you know, like you see him with Primeval Titans, but just for sort of incidental value in the late game, because every other land in his deck is a mountain. He can expect when he gets to late game to start grinding you out with Valakut. It's one of the things that I see him do in decks a lot that I like. And of course, a couple of board sweepers. No AJ deck with a bunch of big guys would be complete without some board sweepers just there as reset buttons. So let's take a look at his couple of his matches real quick. This is his round 1 match against Nagarjuna. And we'll see that he very quickly is able to get his combo online. He keeps a 6-land Zedruu hand. I'm not so sure about that, but it ends up working really well. And one of the great things about having a 2-card combo in your deck is that sometimes you just get lucky and rip it off the top. Nagarjuna is playing an interesting Pack Rat deck here. If you've been drafting Return to Ravnica, you probably hate and loathe that card. One of the great things about the Illusions of Grandeur donate combos is that if you're in a race situation, you buy yourself the extra 20 life with the Illusions of Grandeur. It makes it very difficult to race you. Now, of course, those Pack Rats swing in, and he's going to go ahead and wait until the cumulative upkeep's on the stack, give the thing away. And that makes sure that it has 2 age counters on it at the time that Nagarjuna has to pay the upkeep, which he can't, and that takes care of that. So we'll go ahead and look at the round 2 match that he played here against Ranth. Ranth is playing a Mongoose deck that isn't actually doing very much with the Mongoose per se. Not that they do all that much. I've tried to build them several different ways, but Ranth has put around the Mongoose, he's put Punishing Fire, Grove of the Burn Willows combo in there, and he's also got a Solitary Confinement Mikoko combo, or I don't know how you say it, Mikoro, Center of the Sea, something like that from Kamigawa block that is a land that can tap to make each player draw a card, so that allows him to keep his Solitary Confinement active. And in the first round he beat Romulos, who had no out in his deck for Solitary Confinement, was able to beat Romulos just with that by decking him 2 games in a row. Now we'll see here that Ranth has got Nimble Mongoose out, and AJ is got the combo in hand, but of course with Punishing Fire out for Ranth, he may or may not, with that many Grove of the Burn Willows, be able to get the thing off. Right now he's more concerned about Solitary Confinement, because apparently I originally thought that would be an out to Solitary Confinement. However, the Zedruu ability does target, so you could not actually donate the illusions to your opponent if he has Solitary Confinement. So AJ's got to get an answer out to that, which of course he does. And that Nimble Mongoose is still sitting there not turned on. There's not a lot going on here to turn it on in this deck. Obviously in the late game you would expect it to be once he's got his combo up and running for a while, but at that point that may be unnecessary. AJ going to get a little bit of incidental damage in here. And Ranth just trying to get some damage in with the Punishing Fire. Now the mongooses do have Shroud. 2 of the 3 of them do, anyways. Strikes me as if you're going to staple some powerful combo onto the thing, that some sort of natural order combo might be good, because you won't necessarily get blown out by spot removal in response to casting the natural order. Well, I guess the sacrifice is part of it. When you do Pattern of Birth, there's got to be something you can do with the fact they have Shroud to make it take some advantage of that. The mongoose, again, they've got Shroud, but Ranth has not done anything to enable them, and they are just sitting over there as chump blockers at this point of the game. And Ranth has Enlightened Tutor. He's also using Silver Scrying to find that Mikoro. And so he's got tutors for both parts of his combo, but that O-ring will seal the deal, as it were. So, anyways, that is the show and tell segment for this week, and I hope you enjoyed it, and join me again next week.